the agenda as submitted.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Excellent. Do we have any announcements or presentations today? No announcements or presentations. Fantastic. We'll get out of here quickly today.
Yeah.
Famous last words, everyone. Famous last words. All right. Now we can move on to our public hearing. So I'm going to read the rules of order for our public hearing on zoning matters. The hearing shall be presided over by the mayor. After calling the hearing to order, the mayor shall request the parcels of property which are the subject of the zoning proposal be identified in red. Following such identification and reading, the development director's recommendation shall be presented. The mayor and city council shall cause the director's written recommendations to be made part of the record. Proponents of each proposed zoning decision shall be allowed a total of 10 minutes for presentation of data, evidence, and opinion concerning the zoning decision. If all 10 minutes are not used, the proponent's remaining time may be reserved for rebuttal. Opponents of each proposed zoning decision shall then be allowed a total of 10 minutes for presentation of data, evidence, and opinion concerning each zoning decision. The presentation times may not be reduced, but may be extended by majority vote, provided they're expanded equally for proponents and opponents. Anyone wishing to speak must come to the microphone, give their name, address, and their address to the city clerk. Do not speak unless you have the microphone and have been recognized. And with that, Mr. Adams.
Evening, Mayor and Council. Matt Adams, Planning and Development Director for the City of Chamblee. First item up for public hearing tonight is PZ 2025-1574 at 3641 and 3643 Pierce Drive. So the applicant is requesting one variance to allow a commercial dumpster to be located in the side yard rather than the rear yard as required by the UDO. You may remember this case was previously reviewed in October, but was deferred by council so that staff could confer with the applicant and legal counsel regarding whether the access point serving the dumpster was a driveway on the neighboring property or an alleyway functioning as a private street. It may seem like a technicality or a difference without a distinction, but the UDO regulates the two very differently, and the classification has direct impacts on whether or not additional variances would be required. On behalf of the staff, I thank you for that time. It was very enlightening. Anybody who wants to know the difference between alleys and streets and public driveways, etc., it is wonderful nighttime reading. So the subject property is zoned village commercial and currently operates as an e-commerce distribution center. The primary building was constructed in 1972, sits directly adjacent to the rear and side property lines, leaving no usable rear yard for a dumpster enclosure. The adjacent parcel at 3643 Pierce Drive provides access to the private drive behind the structure. That configuration appears to be long-standing, was not created by the applicant, and staff's finding is that the existing dumpster is located in the only feasible location to serve one on the site. The applicant is proposing to construct a wooden enclosure in the form of a 6-foot fence around the existing dumpster placement, which you can see on the site plan on the screen now. Staff finds that the installation of the fence is one of the options permitted by the UDO for enclosing a dumpster and would effectively bring the site into compliance following their 2024 code enforcement citation. Staff's finding is that exceptional unique conditions exist because the building is built out to the property lines, leaving no rear yard for a compliant dumpster placement. This is a historic site condition, again, not one created by the current owner, and strict application of the UDO would create an unnecessary hardship in the form of a standard that could not be met. On this slide, you'll see how the fence would interact with the existing structure. It is not a enclosure as one would normally think of it, but it is a formal fence. So it's one of the two options that is allowed by the UDO. In addition to our other findings, staff found that granting the variance would not cause detriment to the public good, as the enclosure will screen the dumpster, improve the site's appearance along Pierce Drive and the private driveway, create a cleaner and safer condition near the adjacent high school and other commercial uses. So staff is recommending approval with conditions of the variance request. The conditions are as follows. The development shall be constructed in substantial conformity with the site plan dated received by the Planning and Development Department on November 17, 2025. And the applicant shall provide confirmation they have obtained permission to use the neighboring driveway for access to and servicing of the dumpster.
Mr. Adams, is there anyone here that would like to speak in favor of this item? Please come to the microphone.
Lost council members. I'm here on behalf of Stephen Golden. He could not make it today personally, so I'm here in his stead. Here to ask any questions. I really appreciate the opportunity to be here to speak today. I don't want to bore you with the information that Matt gave you. He did a really good job. It was a pleasure working with him. But I'm here for any questions if needed that would otherwise be directed to Stephen Golden. So, thank you.
Anyone in opposition of this item? All right. That brings us down to PZ 2025-1587, 3645 Chamblee Dunwoody Road.
All right, so for this application, the applicant is requesting a variance, again, to allow a commercial dumpster enclosure on the Ivy Lane Street side yard. Dumpsters are otherwise prohibited in this location under the UDO. Here you can see the site location. This request is tied to a 2024 code enforcement citation for an unenclosed dumpster. The property is a medical office situated on a corner lot at Chamblee Dunwoody Road and Ivy Lane. Because of the site's slope and building placement, the applicant is unable to construct a compliant enclosure in the rear yard. Property is zoned village commercial, and the clinic was built in the 1960s. It occupies a 0.45 acre parcel. The topography behind the site is the primary hardship here. It drops away sharply from the building towards the rear of the lot and prevents possibility of placing an enclosure in the rear yard without significant grading in the installation of new paving. Staff reviewed the site and found that the only location that allows safe access for collection vehicles and avoids interference with traffic on Chamblee Dunwoody Road and also stays out of the front yard setback is the existing location of the dumpster along Ivy Lane. It has long been located there because of the physical constraints we just mentioned. Site constraints are exceptional and peculiar to this property and are not shared in common with other properties in the immediate area. In reviewing this request, staff found that requiring strict compliance with the dumpster placement would create an unnecessary hardship. There is no practical or functional way to relocate the dumpster in the rear yard without requiring extensive regrading of the site. Properly screened enclosure will improve the appearance along the side along Ivy Lane, which is adjacent to residential and school traffic. While not a recommendation or condition of approval, staff would suggest that a level base for stability to be provided due to the slope. However, staff is recommending approval with two conditions. First, that the dumpster enclosure be constructed in substantial conformity with the plan received September 8th, 2025, and that the enclosure be constructed of brick or masonry materials that are similar to or complementary with the primary structure.
Thank you. Is there anyone here that wishes to speak in favor of this item?
Hi, my name is Alice Price. I'm here on behalf of the applicant. My address is 202 Tribble Gap Road in Cumming, Georgia. Is the PowerPoint on this?
There is
Sorry.
this here.
Oh, perfect. Thank you. And Mr. Adams obviously shared a lot of the information, so I'll make this quick and then just be available for questions as well. As he mentioned, we're located on 3645 Chamblee Dunwoody Road. The lot is village commercial. It houses Jaeger Family Medicine, a practice that has been in Chamblee for over 40 years. It did move to this location in 2002. As you can see, it is, sorry, I'm going the wrong way here, located on the corner of Chamblee Dunwoody Road and Ivy Lane. The building is all the way down to the property line on one side, and then it does have woods and a slope towards the back. The building itself, as Mr. Adams mentioned, was built in the 1960s. There has been a dumpster at the location where the Star is there. Since then, it's moved a little bit, but that's where a dumpster has been located the entire time. The applicant is proposing to put a wooden structure as the enclosure for the dumpster. For that reason, We're thankful to the staff for recommending approval. We would like to add to the second condition that wood would be allowed. A wood structure will allow a little bit more flexibility on where the dumpster can be placed. In addition, Dr. Yeager is considering some aesthetic updates to the current building, painting, and having a wooden structure will make it a lot easier to make sure that when and if that does happen, we'll be able to match the enclosure to the updates to the building. And I'll reserve any time for questions if you have any.
Is there anybody that's like to speak in opposition to this item? All right, that brings us down to PZ 2025-1593, 4847 Peachtree Road.
All right, so in this application, the applicant is requesting a variance to allow a roof sign on a commercial property. Roof signs like the kind currently proposed in this application are prohibited under the UDO, necessitating the variance to accommodate the request. The site is zoned village commercial. Neighboring uses include restaurants, veterinary services, and right-of-way for MARTA and Peachtree Boulevard. Parcel is just under a quarter acre in size with a small footprint and a building for them that differs notably from the nearby purpose-built commercial structures. Staff reviewed the property and found that the constraints stem from the building's design rather than from the lot conditions. Structure was initially built as a single-family residence in the 1960s, later converted to commercial use, but the building retains its original residential low roof form, fascia height, and conventional commercial sign placement options are therefore limited. The site includes a small monument sign, but due to traffic speeds and the building setback, staff finds it does not provide adequate visibility, and that would create a hardship as customers approaching from either direction would not be able to see it given its location. Applicant is seeking the roof sign to provide additional business identification, which a standard facade-mounted sign would normally provide. However, as you can tell from the photograph here, there is no facade on which to mount a sign. Because of these factors, staff found that strict application of the sign standard creates an unnecessary hardship as there is limited area for a visible sign to be connected. As such, staff supports this variance request with no conditions. We are here for any questions.
Thank you. Is there anyone in the audience that'd like to speak in favor of this item? Is there anyone that'd like to speak in opposition? All right. If there's no one, that moves us down to PZ 2025-1599. This is for properties 1974 and 1980 on 5th Street.
All right, so the next item located at 1974 and 1980 5th Street, the applicant is requesting 2 waivers and 4 variances to construct a new surface parking lot to support an existing flight school and aviation business. The variance requests are as follows. 1, to allow 4 off-street parking spaces between the buildings and 5th Street. 2, to use permeable pavers instead of asphalt or concrete for the parking area. 3, to remove the requirement for marked parking spaces. And 4, to remove the requirement for wheel bumpers at the parking spaces. The waiver requests are to remove landscape islands placed every 10 spaces and at the terminus of the parking rows, and to remove the requirement to provide a 5-foot pedestrian walkway connecting public parking to sidewalks and building entrances. The site consists of 2 parcels, each containing single-story structures originally built as residences. There is no existing sidewalk or streetscape along 5th Street, and tree canopy and drainage challenges exist at the rear of the site. The lots themselves are long and narrow and slope significantly away from the street towards the rear of the property line, as you can see in the photographs provided. Staff found that the lot's narrow widths, long depth, and consistent downward slope creates the exceptional site conditions for these properties. These conditions restrict where ADA parking could feasibly be located, limit opportunities to meet impervious surface maximums while still providing the code-required parking. Staff determined that for variance 1, which requests 4 spaces in front of the building, is appropriate given the need for ADA access, and that being the only feasible location for it. For variance 2, allowing permeable pavers, this would reduce impervious surface and support stormwater management, which there is limited opportunity to do on this site. Again, the topographic changes I mentioned earlier support the use of permeable materials for this property. However, for variance 3, which was removing the parking striping, and variance 4, which would remove the wheel bumpers, staff found no hardship present. These features are basic safety elements required to meet the intent of parking standards, and there is no constraint based on the size, shape, and topography that staff could find that would make compliance with these standards impossible. For waiver 1, staff found that requiring landscape islands would push the parking area further towards the rear of the site, impacting a mature tree canopy and further impacting the lot coverage of the site, thereby potentially triggering additional variances and waivers. And for waiver 2, staff agreed that it would be unreasonable to require a walkway connection to a public sidewalk that does not exist. However, allowing no pedestrian accommodation at all would create a safety issue because pedestrians would be walking in active drive aisles on an area that is steeply sloped. So for staff's recommended actions, we are recommending approval of variances 1 and 2 and waiver 1, and denial of variances 3, 4, and waiver 2 with the following conditions. First, the project be in substantial conformity with the site plan dated October 29th, 2025. 2, pedestrian walkways be provided at the north and south of the site connecting the parking lot to the front entryways of both buildings. 3, that a crosswalk over the drive aisle be provided using appropriate materials as approved by the city engineer and the planning and development director. 4, that the parcels be combined before issuance of the land disturbance permit. And 6, that all conditions from PZ 2020-649 are null and void. I would note that the condition requiring the parcels to be combined is based on our understanding of the current practices of DeKalb County. In most of these cases, they would not accept a land disturbance permit for 2 commercial properties where the construction crosses the property line without them being consolidated. However, in this case, we wanted to make sure that we weren't granting approval to something that a higher governmental body would thereby reject and make it unbuildable. So as you consider your actions for this site, you may consider adding as required by DeKalb County to condition number 4. If it is not required by DeKalb County, that condition would go away. But if it is required, it would still be in place, making sure that we signal to DeKalb County we are not encouraging folks to buck against their authority. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone out there who would like to speak in favor of this item?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Darren Cussman, Roma Fine Homes, here on behalf of the applicant. Thank you, Director Adams, for clarifying that regarding DeKalb County. We did have an opportunity to speak with the county, and we understand that that comes from their property appraisal group and is a request because it makes it easier for them to value properties. It is not required. We are working through that with DeKalb GIS. Today, we were hoping to have some resolution, but we would kindly ask that that be removed, and it's something that we can address with staff if needed. The last update I had from DeKalb GIS was, well, it really has to do with how the permit's processed. So if you submitted 2 LDPs to us, one for each property, then they wouldn't really care. So it seems like it's a little bit of form over substance, so we would just ask that that be removed, and we can address it with staff. I do want to take a moment just to recognize my client. When they engaged me on this, they came to me and said, look, we need to be able to park this. We want it to be safe. It's a life safety issue. The road in front is about 18 to 20 feet wide, depending where you measure, no curb, and they're currently parked up and down that entire street. Their comment to me was effectively, let's do this the right way. Let's do it in a way that benefits the city. Let's do it in a way that looks good and maximizes the functional utility of the site for us and for future users. And, you know, within reason, we don't really care what it costs us. Let's do it right. And that's been their attitude from start to finish on this. In creating the design, we did look at the historical approval, and we believe that this design does meet a lot of that intent. Talks about removing and consolidating curb cuts. That's something that was done. They already actually removed 2, I believe, out of the 3 that were there initially. It talked about maximizing the use of pervious pavers. It talked about any parking above the minimum being constructed of pervious pavers. We've done that with the entire site. We did not do it with the drive access because the slope effectively mitigates the permeability of those, and it becomes just a maintenance issue as rocks come out. And then with the spaces up front, we weren't sure how that would work with the ADA, so we didn't show them that way, but it's something that we're looking into. And then with regards to the marking and curbs, specifically with the parking bumpers, our concern was that every transportation manual we've ever seen and every curb we've come across, those bolt down. It doesn't matter if you're applying to dirt, it's an 18-inch stake. If you're applying to concrete or asphalt, it's usually a 6-inch stake. When you're going into pavers, it doesn't really have anything to bind to, so when you drill it, it splits. The other reason we requested the variance from that and from striping is, as a flight school, Centennial Aviation has a significantly higher parking requirement than any other user of the space would have. So if it were to become a general business use after, they'd probably require 6 to 8 spaces, not 29. And so in designing the site, we really wanted to maximize the functional utility of the site for them and for future users. So to create an area that could be used as an outdoor activity center or a way to engage. If it wasn't used as parking, an asphalt parking lot wouldn't really do that. But the main concern, particularly with the wheel bumpers, is we put these things in either at install or the second they get touched. All of a sudden now we've got them pushed left and right and all over the parking lot, and we've got cracked pavers everywhere. And it just becomes an ongoing maintenance and safety issue and trip hazard in and of itself. To mitigate that, we were going to install, obviously, the guardrails that were required, and we were going to pour that retaining wall a little bit higher, too, so you would have a wheel stop there if push came to shove. If you do determine that the bumpers are needed, we would ask that you include in that condition some flexibility to deviate from GDOT or MUTCD manuals, because it would probably be some sort of adhesive-based application that would be needed. And that's something that, as far as I'm aware, isn't really contemplated. So we'd have to work through a way to do that, because a bolt-down method just really doesn't work when you don't have anything to grab to. And, sorry, just going through my notes. Additionally, with the regard to the sidewalks around the side yards to the front of the buildings, we think that's a very good idea, and we're fully supportive of it. We would ask for some flexibility as it relates to boundary trees. If we run into any issues, that staff would have the ability to make that determination, because obviously we can't control things off-site when you're dealing with 7 to 10 feet within a neighbor's property. I don't want to get into a situation where we run into an issue with the boundary tree and now we have to come back before council when it's something that staff could handle in their professional judgment. So we support and agree to the condition, but would ask that you give them the flexibility to address anything that might be related off-site that would limit our ability to do that. Other than that, I think that is really the gist of it. We requested the deviation from the marking and the curbs because we want to be able to activate that space, both now and for future users, because they're typically not using that much. So with that, I'll reserve any time for questions or rebuttal.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to speak in favor of this item? Anybody in opposition? This isn't the time for questions at this point. This isn't the time. So you're speaking in opposition of it? Then come on up and say your little piece.
So as protocol, Ronnie, the question and answer part happens later in the meeting.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
this is just citizen comment.
Okay. I own 3302 Hardy Avenue, and I rent it out to a landscaper, but I'm there all the time too. And I have a problem with all the cars in the street. And if they're going to do the pavers there, I just think for aesthetics, you don't want yellow lines or white lines. I don't want it to look like a parking lot. But if y'all going to approve this thing, approve it with no cars in the street. We have a big fire station right there, and those fire trucks need to get through this. Sometimes I can't even get through there, and it's very, very frustrating. So, I have no problem with whatever they want to do with the pavers. I know if we do some of the landscaping pots or whatever, but we don't want yellow lines or white lines to make it look like a parking lot. Just make it look nice, and just with only conditions that you can't have any cars on the street right there. Thank you.
Anyone else that would like to speak in favor of this item? Anyone in opposition? All right. That brings us down to PZ 2025-1602, 4900 Peachtree Road.
So this item located at 4900 Peachtree Road is the last item for public hearing tonight. This is a request to modify the rezoning approval granted in 2023 under case PZ 2023-1209 and the concurrent waivers and variances. Staff discovered during the zoning final inspection for the property that the as-built site was not in substantial conformity with the approved plans. This was a condition placed on the rezoning variance and waiver proposal by council in 2023. The applicant is now requesting that their original application be modified to remove this condition on their rezoning variances and waivers. In order to do that, the UDO requires that the entire application in total be retried so that the council can consider that. So in addition to the rezoning, the variance requests are variances from the UDO to allow a drive-through facility on a storefront street, to locate off-street parking between the building and Peachtree Road, to reduce compact parking from 5 spaces to 2, and to not provide a bypass lane for a drive-through. And the 2 waivers are to allow motor vehicle use on the ground floor of a storefront street, and to allow motor vehicle-related uses in the permitted use listed in the permitted use table where they would otherwise not be permitted. The property is zoned corridor commercial and is located within the Peachtree Boulevard corridor character area. This area is envisioned as a pedestrian-oriented mixed-use corridor, but also contains legacy auto-oriented sites such as big box retail. There is a Lowe's directly to the north, and a restaurant with a drive-through facility directly to the east. The site was originally developed in 2022 as an auto service garage. There's an 8,441 square foot building with 4 service bays and 36 surface parking spaces. During the zoning final, again, staff found the approved parking island was omitted and the drive aisle was constructed without a bypass lane. Given the location of the existing building near the rear sight line, there is no space to install a bypass lane without major reconstruction of the building itself. Staff finds that the rezoning from VC to CC, which was again originally heard in 2023, remains consistent with the surrounding context and particularly given that the use has operated for over 20 years. Staff found that the existing configuration of the site creates practical challenges for meeting the drive-through and parking standards. The lack of space behind the building makes a bypass lane physically infeasible. This long-standing auto use is consistent with nearby properties that have been previously granted similar variances. Staff also found that prohibiting the motor vehicle-related use on a storefront street would be unreasonable, particularly because the business predates the ordinance and the use is compatible with surrounding development. Because of this, granting the waivers would not cause detriment to the public good. The staff is recommending approval of all 4 variances and both waivers, but retains the original condition that the development match the condition, maintain the condition of substantial conformity with the site plan received by the Planning and Development Department on September 25th, 2023, that shows the proposal to install the parking island and drainage inlet.
Thank you. Is there anyone that would like to speak in favor of this item?
Council. My name is Rodney Clark. I live at 63 Ayers Road in Aragon, Georgia. I'm the regional facility manager for Discount Tire. When we originally submitted the first application for the drive-through, it was to eliminate the issue of cars backing up into the main entrance out into the Lowe's area. At that time, we also thought it would be beneficial to put that island of those parking spaces in the parking areas. Since then, it's become a concern for safety for our customers and our employees, and so we didn't install it and then came back to ask that we could remove that island in the middle. We also have leased parking spaces at Lowe's. We have 29 parking spaces that we lease from Lowe's to accommodate our customers, our employees, to eliminate just safety concerns of people, backing in and out of bays and so forth. And so that our ask is just that we be allowed to keep the drive-through for their air check lanes, because we do over 100 air checks a day, and that's also for the safety of our customers and people. And then just be allowed to remove the island, again, just for safety of our customers and our people. And I'm here to answer any questions.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to speak in favor of this item? Anyone in opposition? All right. That concludes our public hearings, but please stick around for the applicants. This will come up later, and there may be questions. So that brings us down to, there's no public hearings for non-zoning, no staff reports, and this brings us to old business, approval of minutes. Under approval of minutes, we have 4 sets of minutes. Does anyone have any discussions or concerns under these sets?
No, sir.
All right. No ordinance second reads, and then that brings us to new business, which is staff action items. So we will start with the fiscal year 2026 budget resolution.
Hello, good evening. My name is Daria Chrysikis. I'm the Budget and Strategy Manager for the city, and I'm going to cover the fiscal year 2026 budget resolution. As a reminder, we've had 3 public hearings on the budget. Those took place on the 1st, the 2nd, and the 4th, so the 4th a week ago. But just gonna quickly, just one more time, go through this content, and hopefully, if you have any lingering questions, please let me know. Let's see. Sorry. All right. Okay, so as you know, budget development is a lengthy process. This is a process that we started about 6 months ago. The main focus here was, focusing on sustaining the city's growth. The city's had tremendous growth over the last 5 years, and we are still subjected to the same inflationary pressures as everybody else, and that includes costs for health and healthcare benefits in particular. That was something that hit us pretty hard. And in addition, we've seen some slowing of the revenue growth that we had over the last 5 years. In the last couple of years, we've seen double-digit increases in the tax digest, and that's just not what we're seeing anymore, and we're being responsive to that. So as part of that, the city manager's office requested that all city departments take a look through their budgets as they plan for next year, look for opportunities to reduce. What we found is, kind of as expected, it's a pretty lean organization. It was very challenging for the departments to do that, but they still did, were creative and thoughtful and strategic in what they submitted, and they did a fantastic job identifying areas for to reduce. So the result of all of that work is a flat general fund budget at $35.9 million, which is the same as it was in 2025. And this projected budget is based on a millage rate of 6.25 mils, which we would not adopt until June of next year, but that would be the same millage rate as we've had the last several years. We have just some of the items that are significant here. I'm going to go through quickly. First of all, as you know, the city received a health benefit renewal that would have increased our cost by 31%. You all took action a couple months ago to switch from Cigna to UHC, which greatly alleviated some of that burden. So it's still increased, but it's not quite as much. I believe it was about 7% there. Instead, we have a continued strategic investment in renewable energy infrastructure. There's some debt service that's increased, minor increases over last year, but that's still fairly new from the last couple of years, as we've taken on some for Fishbowl Park, a new public works building, and some property along Broad Street. This budget also includes technology for the Real-Time Crime Center and an investigation position that will staff that center, which, as you know, it's pretty much ready to open. It includes some budget software. You know that we have a lot of kind of inefficiencies in our processes and opportunities to modernize, so that will not only help things internally, but it will also make our reporting processes more transparent. One of the big things that showed up in this budget was in our facilities. Big increases to things like custodial and utilities, things like that. So you'll see that reflected in particular in the facilities budget. And then there is an economic development strategic assessment. That's an item that we've been looking to achieve this year. And so that's funded for next year, and we'll be partnering with Georgia Tech. And then I believe that's it. Oh, and then continued funding in our community engagement department. That includes our nonprofit partnership, neighborhood engagement program, our partnered events, and next year there will be expanded events, including events for the FIFA World Cup and Independence Day. And I do apologize that this is actually quite difficult to see, but this is the, up on the slide here, but this is all of the budget broken down by department. And then here it is again. You can see the biggest cost drivers for us are public safety, administration, and public works. And then here we're going to the special revenues. This covers a variety of items. The biggest increase here is going to be with the introduction of the Park General Obligation Bond Fund. As you know, we issued a bond earlier this year for about $30 million, so that's reflected in there. And then some of the items that I wanted to highlight here, we have 10% of the hotel motel revenue for public art and PAC projects, and there's also an allocation for events related to the World Cup. There's $1.2 million that's funded partially by a TIP grant and partially through SPLOS funds, and that is for getting started on right-of-way acquisition for the rail trail. That's a project that's been ongoing for several years. There's funds to finish out the remaining scope on the Chamblee Safety Action Plan, which is 80% grant funded with a 20% local match. In the Special Service District Fund for the downtown, there's a South Lawn Green Space Design and Engineering, which is that green space that's in that direction from where I'm standing here at City Hall. There's continued funding for additional maintenance and police personnel, and then there's also funding for a portion of that cost of the flock cameras that are on the rail trail and some updates to Rideshare Park. In the Dresden Plaster SSD, that's a new SSD that was established this year. That's going to include phase 2 of the Dresden Trail project, continued funding for a labor position that takes care of our Dresden and Arrow Creek parks, and crosswalks and other enhanced safety site improvements in the Dresden Plaster area. SPLOS, that's one of our big items for, you know, a lot of our big hitters for capital items there. So as I mentioned, the Rail Trail 7 through 12 funds are there, as well as the Broad Street Streetscape and the Chamblee Dunwoody Road Diet Project. And there's also funds in there for police vehicle and equipment replacement, which is something we do every year to keep it regular so it's not all, you know, doesn't hit you all at once. Last few items we have the Parsons Drive and Perimeter Park Connector property acquisition. There are carryover funds for the Dresden Park Community Room. That's just to close out that project, which is just actually this upcoming Saturday, we're opening that park back up. There's funds for the conversion of Plaza Way to a one-way road. There's also 2026 paving funds. As you know, we pave every other year, and the paving analysis is currently in process. So hopefully we'll have that, you know, that paving list generated by next summer is the plan. Then there's construction of Dresden Trail from Shallowford Road to Dresden Park. And then, of course, I mentioned the $30 million for site improvements for the park bond projects. And that includes Huntley Hills Park, Nancy Creek West and Savoy Trails, Wood Acres / South Chamblee Park, and then the Keswick Park Master Plan implementation. And the final category is our enterprise funds, which includes stormwater and solid waste funds. So on the, again, we have our kind of significant items here. So the first one is a major stormwater and inventory and assessment that we're doing. You all approved that scope of work last month, I believe. There's $1.5 million for stormwater repairs. That's to continue addressing some of those needed and oftentimes critical and urgent repairs that are needed for stormwater infrastructure. There's a portion of that debt service for Fishbowl Park and that new Public Works building that I mentioned earlier. And lastly, one of the things I wanted to highlight, and you'll get a little more information on this from Todd, I think shortly after, I think he's right after me, is increase to commercial and residential sanitation fees. And that is to address the fact that, as you know, the sanitation fund is not self-sustaining. It hasn't been, but the amount that the general fund has been would be projected to support it was over $1 million. And so we took a look at that and concluded that it made sense to look at that fee. All right, and then that's it for me. So any questions?
Thank you. We'll open it up to council for any questions for Daria on the budget.
Thank you once again for preparing this, Daria. I think I've thanked you 4 times, but thank you again.
Absolutely.
Yeah, this represents 6 months of work. So this started a long time ago. As Daria said, we are not immune from inflation and economic headwinds that everybody else is facing out there. So thank you for putting this together, and thank you to all the departments for helping to put it together. And we will have a glorious 2026 with this budget. So thank you. All right, that brings us down to the resolution to establish the 2026 fee schedule.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Of course, this is end of year, so we have to establish our 2026 annual fee schedule, which we always do in December. Few brief changes to that. We did add a complimentary beer wine establishment license type to our alcohol ordinance earlier this year, and so we are formalizing that fee in our fee schedule for 2026. I believe Earl Davis and Todd Hill are here if they want to make some comments about the changes to the sanitation fee, so I will let them go ahead and do that, and then I will touch on the other items really briefly.
You're not making Earl do this?
Not going to make Earl do this, but he might want to answer some of your questions. So, Todd Hill, Director of Public Works. For a long time, we have not raised our fee schedule for sanitation, residential sanitation. We've never had a separate fee schedule for commercial sanitation. And that has caused the sanitation department for our enterprise fund to run at a deficit that has been supplemented by the general fund to a tune of over $1 million every year. So therefore, we looked at this, realized that to get us close to being a full, true enterprise fund that's self-supportive, that we're going to need to increase the fee schedule closer to $485, $495 a year. So we thought that we'd do that in a 3-year process of $70 a year increase. So this year we're raising the fee from $285 to $355 a year for residential sanitation services, and that is a service that provides up to 3 carts. And as you are aware, City of Chamblee provides the best sanitation service in the state of any other city, which I'm very proud of the team that we have that has done that. Led by Earl Davis, who has done an exceptional job. Then as we looked, we started looking at other cities for commercial sanitation services, and we looked at other similar cities around the state, and it varied. It was all over the board. So we looked at it, and we decided to go to a $360 a year fee schedule for commercial sanitation. That is for 1 cart, because with commercial sanitation, some people have 1 cart, some people have 11 carts. So for additional carts, it's $8 a month or $96 a year for each additional cart. And that provides a fair service for everybody. And just to kind of put it in range, about the cheapest dumpster you can get is about $270 a month. So this is not outrageously high for this, and this may be something that we have to continue to look at as we move forward. And we're open to any questions you may have.
Any questions from council?
I do have one question, Todd. On the 3-cart maximum, that's just the sanitation carts. That doesn't count. The recycling carts are counted separately.
It's any combination of the sanitation and
it's any
recycling.
combination. Okay, thank you. And just for reference, DeKalb County did finally raise their residential sanitation fee last year after many years of not doing it. So they they're running a even larger deficit, which unfortunately, I think they're going to be looking at the cities to fill as well. So we may be revisiting this again next year.
Any other questions from council? Thank you, Todd.
And then I'll just proceed with the remaining. But I did want to just add on that, with the sanitation fee increase. I've had conversations with other cities, and it's a continued challenge to try to predict how much this is going to cost. We have a fantastic sanitation service, but the intention behind this was to alleviate the pressure on the general fund, because as Todd and Daria both mentioned, there's quite a substantial, or at least there has been over the years, quite a substantial subsidy that the general fund provides to that sanitation service. So we are taking it seriously. I'm confident that we have the right team to address any of the long-term challenges. Earl does a fantastic job, Todd as well. And so I just wanted to mention that the intention is not to punish anybody, but to alleviate that general fund. Moving on to the other.
Hold on, I had one question. I just kind of curiosity on the residential 3-cart maximum. Is there a fee if they want to have a 4th cart, or is that not really something we do?
I believe they're not allowed to have more than 3. Is that correct, Todd?
Just curious. So we have it.
Not have that in the fee schedule, and we just don't allow them to have more than that.
No problem.
Some additional changes to the fee schedule. We've added the addition of City Hall lobby TV advertisements. So these TV screens out here, as you've seen, we run city content on those TVs. We've had some inquiries about running advertisements like we do in the Signal, just a digital version of it. So we've reflected that here in the fee schedule as well. And then if we can go to the next slide. The Planning and Development Department is proposing a $25 technology fee added to each permit that requires a fee, and this is in alignment with practices in other cities. And then lastly, on the bond schedule, there are several changes to that bond schedule, too many to outline in this presentation, but the vast majority of them are actually just increases to the most common offenses that we see. It's a $10 increase to those common offenses. There's the $175 fee is going to $185 for those frequent offenses. The additional notable one is the failure to have an occupation tax certificate. That is a very common occurrence, and it is a little bit of a challenge to adjudicate properly. So we have changed the fee schedule. Instead of being a flat $175, it's an incremental $500, $750, and $1,000 fine rather. And then we've made adjustments to the fee schedule in alignment with Senate Bill 63, which relates to infractions that result in an arrest and require an appearance before a judge. So the cost of having to actually arrest somebody based off of the violation that they have and then take them to DeKalb County Jail and go through the whole adjudication process with that.
Thank you. Any questions from council on those items? All right, that brings us down to the Sexton Woods raised crosswalk.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. As we opened the new spur of the rail trail that was developed by Banner Chambly earlier this year, the use of it was, I think we didn't anticipate the volume of people that would be coming out of Sexton Woods to access that trail spur, and there is not a sidewalk with a safe pedestrian connection to that trail entrance. So we had our team go out and assess it. We're proposing a raised crosswalk from the entrance of the trail to the sidewalk connection on the other side of Sexton Woods Drive. Gracie Gray is the best bidder that we received at $39,283.10, and I will note that they are currently doing our guardrail replacements across the city, and they are ready to move forward with putting that raised crosswalk in, and they're going to try to do it over the Christmas holiday or potentially the winter holiday for DeKalb County, so it's not interrupting traffic during the school year.
Any questions from the council?
It doesn't appear that it has a rapid rectangular push button crosswalk.
We will get that installed with it.
That is installed in there with it? Okay.
Any other questions? All right, that brings us down to the purchase of easement for Nancy Creek West Trail.
Thank you. As you know, we have been working with Chambly First United Methodist Church for quite some time on acquisition of property to build the Nancy Creek West Trail, which will be a portion of our overall trail system, and done in conjunction with the Savoy Trail project, which is all funded in our general obligation parks bond that was issued earlier this year. And so we finally reached an agreement with the church last month, and so I need you guys to authorize the mayor to sign the closing documents to move forward on actually closing that on that property and being able to move forward with the construction of the trail.
Thank you, Ms. Gorham. Any questions from the council?
What was the final number?
$760,000.
And that.
It's a permanent easement.
Can you quickly describe what we're purchasing?
Yes, it's a permanent easement of church property. I don't have the entirety of the area off the top of my head, but originally we were looking at a temporary easement or construction easement. This is actually a permanent easement, so the city will retain ownership of that easement in perpetuity. But it will abut the church along Chamblee Dunwoody Road and connect to the Repose Trail that was built by that development.
Any other questions from council? All right, that moves us down to, back to the items we cover in public hearing. So this is PZ 2025 3641 Pierce Drive. Is there any questions from council?
This was, okay. Sounds like, just making sure this is the dumpster closest, project closest to the high school on that side of Pierce Drive.
This was the 6-foot fence.
Yeah, okay. And so was there any, Matt, sorry, I don't know why I was thinking Todd. It's a dumpster, maybe that's what I thought, Todd.
Both very intelligent guys, so.
Yeah, is that what it is? Okay. Is there, I couldn't tell from the drawing, is there any, it says it called a fence instead of a dumpster enclosure, so that means, and to me that means there's yard or property inside the fence that's otherwise used as, besides being a dumpster?
That's correct, yes.
Okay, all right, that's it.
Any other questions?
Not for me.
All right. That brings us down to 3645 Chamblee Dunwoody Road. Any questions from council? Okay. That now moves us down to 3525 Broad Street.
Okay. So this item was deferred last month to allow the applicant time to respond to staff's recommended denials and staff report to address concerns related to the height of the multifamily building in the dead-end street on Urbandale Drive. I will not present the revisions, but I will present staff's finding on them and allow the applicant to present their revisions. So staff received a detailed response from the applicant on December 2nd. We've reviewed that material, and based on that review, several of staff's original findings have changed. We now find that some of the variance requests previously recommended for denial meet the criteria for granting a variance. We thank the applicant for the clarification and technical information they provided. Of those that staff previously recommended denial, staff is now recommending approval of variances 1, 2, 3, 13, 24, 48, and 56. In the updated analysis, staff determined that each of these items either addresses conditions inherent to the site or the building program, that they're needed to maintain internal consistency with the adopted PUD regulating plan, or that they represent reasonable deviations that do not undermine the intent of the development standards. One variance originally recommended for denial, which is variance 58, is no longer needed. The applicants updated their plans to now show compliant wheel bumpers, but staff is maintaining its recommendation of denial for variances 25, 46, 47, and waivers 1, 3, and 11. In these cases, staff found that the applicant's response did not overcome the original concerns. These requests either conflict with the streetscape or pedestrian-oriented requirements, create conditions that would diminish the functional quality and safety of public infrastructure, or lack a site-specific hardship justifying their approval.
And I believe there are folks representing the development who are here to do a brief presentation as well.
Fantastic.
I would just like a refresher from anybody, I don't care. Go back to that previous slide, whoever changed it, please. Can you go back to the previous slide, the one that showed that Matt was presenting off that showed the, so I'm very interested in the remaining variances for denial, recommended for denial, 25, 46, 47, waivers 1, 3, and 11. Just reviewing what they are, because this number game is obviously getting trouble to keep up with. And then second, what's your position on that? I'm just kind of curious what you.
Absolutely, yeah. So once again, Josh Sachs with Well Design Studio. We're the multifamily architect on the project. I have Eric Bethany with Lineway Studio. He's the retail architect. And we're here representing both Vantage and Greystar, who unfortunately could not make tonight's meeting, but will be here at next week's meeting. As you mentioned, we're just here to kind of walk through the items that are still being recommended for denial. So we just want to take you through our rationale and why we are hoping to get your approval on those variances and waivers. So if we go through the list, I think the first few are related to the retail portion, so Eric will walk through those, and then I'll jump in as well.
Thanks. So if we can advance. Can I advance with this? Oh, there we go. It's going back and forth. There we go. Okay. So I'll be speaking tonight about variances. I'll go ahead and move that up. 25, 46, 47, and waiver number 1. Variance number 25 has to do with building number 100, which is one of the 4 retail buildings on the property. The specific nature of this variance is a request to not vary the facade cladding material for building 100 from the grade up to the parapet, up to the roof. If we back up a little bit, the core intent of Chapter 2, Section 6B is really to create variety in the building facades, break down the scale and massing and materiality of these buildings so that we're creating a lively pedestrian experience as we're walking down the block, avoiding a situation where we have a large building with sort of a monotonous facade that's taking up a whole block. This Section 6B offers multiple options to achieve this effect, and we are pursuing several. It's our position that we are satisfying the core intent of this section. So I'll just walk through what our strategies are. So number 1, the width of our building overall, where it fronts Broad Street, is 117 feet. That's well under the 200-foot maximum width. Beyond that, we're breaking down the massing and scale of this building into 2 volumes. One is a 2-story volume, the other is a single-story volume. So really creating the effect of 2 buildings rather than 1 large building. The section of the building that we are proposing not to vary the cladding material is the 2-story portion. We are varying the window types on the ground floor and the upper floor. On the ground floor, you'll see large sort of shop front windows with no light divisions. On the upper floors, you'll see windows with divided lights up there. And then between further sort of breaking down the massing of the building, the single-story portion of the building has a different brick and mortar material. It has awnings over the windows, and those elements are not repeated at the 2-story. So the 2-story does not have those awnings over the windows. It'll have a different brick. So we're employing a few different strategies there to achieve the core intent of that requirement in the PUD. We are just not varying the cladding material from grade up. So here's an elevation of that building 100. Right there you can see the 2-story building with the red brick on the left and the single-story building portion with the darker brick on the right. If you look closely, you can see those windows in the upper floor with the light divisions, whereas downstairs, larger, clear panes. Just down the street on Peachtree Road, we've got a couple precedent examples that I think help kind of illustrate what we're trying to accomplish here. So this is a building right down the street that's got a similar kind of scale and massing and feel to it, to what we're trying to accomplish. There's another building just a few doors down that takes a similar approach. So that's our sort of explainer on 25. I'll pause there if there are any questions on that specific one, or I'll just keep going. Okay, so variance 46 for building 300, the third of the 4 retail buildings, we are proposing a roof form that deviates from the PUD requirements. The PUD sort of assumes it's written for really developments of one building at a time and not a block scale development with 6 buildings on it. The assumption is a condition, a more kind of typical commercial downtown condition where you've got a retail building that's got street frontage, maybe buildings on either side, and then maybe an alley or a site access road in the back. Building 300 has sort of unique site conditions. It's placed at the interior of the property. It doesn't have any direct street frontage on any of the perimeter roads that ring the property. The intent, the core intent of building 300 is for it to be an activator. So all 3, building 100, 200, and 300, these buildings are positioned around the town green. And we've lined these buildings with ground floor patios, rooftop terraces, all in an effort to create a really vibrant, lively town green. And building 300 is sort of the linchpin of that strategy. So it's got really vibrant ground floor patios and a rooftop terrace, but it does not have that sort of traditional retail building, commercial downtown site condition that I described. It's sort of viewed in the round. It's active on all 4 sides. And for that reason, this, the roof form that would be expected in the PUD with a single slope roof with a parapet wall that you see on actually buildings 100 and 200 doesn't work, in our opinion, quite as well for building 300. So we've proposed an asymmetrical gable roof that has sort of a dramatic cantilever that covers the rooftop terrace and part of the ground floor patio below. It's going to create a really great vantage point to view activity in the town green and a great backdrop for activity that's happening in the town green itself. Variance number 46, just continuing, this is a building that Vantage Realty Partners executed in downtown Duluth on their town green. Similar site condition, building is active on all 4 sides. Small footprint for this building, but lively rooftop terrace with a distinctive roof line. Our strategy is similar. Variance 47, this has to do with the ground floor cladding material at building 200. I'll go ahead and skip ahead so we can see what I'm talking about. So on the left-hand side, building 200, just like building 100, is broken down into a 2-story portion and a single-story portion. On the left-hand side, on the ground floor, you've got depicted in blue here, shop front. So sort of historically inspired retail shop fronts. And we are proposing to build those shop fronts out of smooth-faced fiber cement cladding. It's a composite building product that is commonly used today, where historically we would use wood. Fiber cement is not listed in the PUD as an acceptable material. The PUD would rather see wood, but fiber cement offers superior longevity, durability, and really it doesn't require any kind of compromise in terms of the aesthetic. So if we continue along, these are images from the PUD depicting the same style of like historic retail shop front that we're planning to achieve, that our design intent follows. Just a few examples there. And then 2 examples from that downtown Duluth project. These are designs that I worked on with Vantage Realty Partners on that project. The buildings here are executed with that same smooth-faced fiber cement cladding to achieve that kind of historically inspired retail shop front look. And I will wrap up the retail portion with waiver number 1 for a request to not provide heat-reflective roofing materials. And I'll start with a clarification. The clarification here is that the roofing material over the conditioned, air-conditioned, and enclosed portions of 100, 200, and 300, and 400 will be heat reflective. It will be a TPO membrane roofing product that is white and heat reflective. We are only proposing non-heat reflective roofing in the open air roof terraces and for the canopy over building 300. The reason for this, building 300 has sort of an industrial character. We feel that the material there is in keeping with that character. And then for 100 and 200, standing seam metal roof product in a darker gray color is in character with some materials you see on this building, the Harvey on the corner, a couple other buildings in close proximity here. We like the architectural character of those materials, but they do not necessarily meet the sort of like standard definition of heat reflective. That's it for the retail buildings. I'll pause there. I'm happy to answer any questions.
I asked for the question. Those were fine responses to me. I understand it completely now, so thank you.
Okay, so waiver number 3 concerns the ability, or the UDO requirement to use non-combustible materials, construction materials, for buildings 3 stories or higher. So that's type 1 or type 2 construction. We are proposing type 3 and type 5 construction, which is wood construction. We understand why staff recommended denial of this waiver, but we are asking, we're claiming this as a hardship just because, you know, state mandated codes allow for wood construction of a building of this size and scale. And I think that's an important point. You know, really just at the end of the day, if we had to build this building out of concrete or steel, it just wouldn't be feasible to move forward with the project. So this is obviously, you know, a huge item for the team, and we ask for your consideration. And we understand there's other projects in the area that this waiver has been granted. So I'll move to, any questions on that? No? Okay. The next item is waiver number 11, and that is the requirement to bury overhead utility lines along Irvindale. And we've changed our response to this requirement. And we believe that, you know, this is good for us, it's good for the city, and we support it. We just have concerns about the ability to execute it in a timely fashion and what that means for us. So we've come forward to provide the financial assistance to make this happen. We just don't want this to tie down our abilities to get permits or certificates of occupancy. So we're willing to contribute the $204,000 towards this cause, but are asking for Chambly's help to actually execute it. Any questions on that?
So, 204,000 to, that's not gonna be enough. Okay, never mind, I don't have a question.
But you realize it's a great idea, and it has to be done at some point in time. You just don't want it to wait on the.
Yeah, I mean, just the approval process and the parties that we have to deal with in terms of the postal service and the federal government and all of that, and what that means for our timelines is, you know, just extremely. Yeah, I mean, obviously our hope is it could be an expedited process and it can run concurrently with our project, and we'll do everything in our regard to make that happen. We just are, you know, just the unknowns, you know, for us to be tied to it from a permitting and occupancy standpoint is too restrictive and burdensome on our side. But we'll absolutely support it and do whatever we can on our side to make it happen.
We've done this before on other places where it was phased, so the on-site work was done, so we would accommodate, but then, like if the pole was on the other side and had to be run across, that would not be a limiting factor on moving the project forward. You know, I think the one that we're talking about came back 2 years after the project was up running and operating and fine. So I think we can work through it because we've done it before. So that's my 2 cents on that.
Yeah, I don't disagree. We've done it before. We can do it again.
But this sounds like, yeah, this just sounds like something that's not gonna get done for a while, and then we're gonna have to go tear a bunch of stuff out. That's not the way it goes. You don't have to, you can require this stuff. Well, it's 3-1 right now, so I'll see.
Well, I mean, the other option is that you just delay the project for that 3 years.
No, you don't have to delay the project. I think when properly motivated, things move.
Oh.
And I've heard hardships on putting these things underground from this project since the beginning that since I work for the power company, I know those aren't real. I know that things can be done, and I know that service can be interrupted for a shorter time than people think.
I agree.
So, yeah, I'm not sold on that, because it just sounds like just pay to make it go away, but I'm outnumbered right now.
That's it on that, for me, anyway.
Lastly, we just wanted to provide an update on our interior site access road and some changes we made on the design front. Eric, I think you want to touch on that?
Yeah. So here's an updated image. I think council has seen this already, but I'm going to talk us through the characteristics of this, and then I'll flip back and forth between this and the next exhibit, which is the site plan drawing of this element. So, backing up for a moment, this is a generational project for the city of Chamblee, and our goal from the very start is to make it pedestrian-oriented throughout. With that, we have to balance requirements from, fire access and stormwater, these types of things. So when we are designing for those required features, we are doing our utmost to make them pedestrian-oriented, to emphasize that aspect of the project. So I'll start here, and then I'll flip back to that image. The latest design for the interior site access road features a variety of ground cover materials, some sensitive treatment of curbs, strategic pedestrian connections across the drive aisle, and other thoughtful elements like landscaping and bollards to emphasize the pedestrian-oriented nature of this space and de-emphasize the vehicular nature of the space. Our goal is to make drivers uncomfortable and make them, signal clearly that this is people space, this is pedestrian space, not car space. So you can see here, it's hard to read on the screen, but we have 3 crossings, one along Irvindale Drive at the sidewalk, another midway down the drive aisle to get you into the site between buildings 200 and 300, and then again, just before the sort of donut turnaround, fire truck turnaround there. That's a connection from the rail trail to get you into the town green. At each of those locations, we're varying the ground material, and we've introduced sort of upgraded landscaping. So if I flip back up, this is the view sort of with our back to Irvindale Drive looking into the interior of the project. So the multifamily building is in the background. That asymmetrical roof line that I mentioned earlier is on your right-hand side. That's at building 300. But here you can see the variation in ground cover materials. We've got stamped asphalt and a couple other materials there. Bollards there on your left, thoughtful treatment of landscaping, and you can just make out some of those pedestrian crossings and how the ground cover changes. But I'm happy to answer any questions on this element.
So the former mayor used to be, remember how we used to talk about the painted stamped concrete? So I'm assuming that these materials are the colors throughout. Even though it's stamped, it's still like brown all the way through. It's not just brown on the top.
It's stamped asphalt and it's not painted, so you should see, there should be no, change in color in the, lines in between.
Color's not going to peel off after 2 years in
Correct.
the sun.
It's integral to the material, yep.
Another question I had on this. Oh, go back to the previous slide.
The site plan?
Yes. On, what is that, is 11, that's in the roundabout, that area there. We tried to do this once before in another development, the Parkview project, and at that time, the fire marshal did not allow it. He wanted it to be consistent, so and it was what it was. It didn't require any other additional counsel, actually. They just threw it out and they varied it. I don't know if you have any thoughts, I know you don't know what that looked like, but have you given that any thought, like the fire department may not allow, and yours may be larger too, so it may not, but they just did not allow that landscaped area in the middle.
Radius is provided to comply with fire truck turnaround. Our thought in there is that would just be low ground cover and it's mountable if the cab had an issue with it.
We tried to have a mountable curb there, and they just, you remember that, Leslie? Yeah, they tossed it, so.
I think this is larger though.
Is it? Okay. I don't, it's, for the most part, it is what it is. If DeKalb County says it's not allowed, then it's not allowed, so we have to live with it, so. But anyway, that's all I had to say about that.
No, I think on the turnaround, I think exploring putting grasscrete or something in there, or some sort of grid form in there, so it isn't just landscaping, might also alleviate some of the
Sure.
issue. Because they've done that, the new Lumen project on Claremont at Briarcliff. The whole front and side yard of theirs for their fire access is ostensibly grass. But I watched them build it, and it's all
Right.
grasscrete.
Yeah, I'm
So-
familiar with that, and
Yep.
again, Leslie's point, it might be bigger,
Yeah.
smaller. And then, and over the years, I've learned that not every fire marshal gives you the same answer
Oh, of
from
course.
one project to the next.
It's,
Same from guys.
Yeah.
So, just because one fire marshal didn't allow it doesn't mean the next no. But anyway, it's just, again, it is what it is.
One other traffic-related question. There's access to the parking garage from the circle. Is that access for the commercial parking only? Is the residential parking segmented off internally in the parking deck, or is it all open? Basically, my question is the residential access going to be from Ingersoll to try and limit some of that through traffic, or is it?
I mean, it's technically free movement from either side. However, I mean, I think from a convenience standpoint, people will gravitate towards Ingersoll just because you don't have to go through that drive and deal with pedestrian traffic.
Watching the traffic move through Parkview, which has a similar shared parking situation, drivers will amaze you at what they will do, even when it makes no sense.
Yeah, understood.
And so that's something we may want to talk about a bit more, if it is possible to divide that internally to, again, assist with that.
Yeah, I mean, the way that the garage itself is structured, I mean, the retail and residents share the same ramp system, and the gate access occurs above, so like there's not
Right.
a way below
Right,
that to kind of
that's how
segment.
Parkview is built then. So that's one of the challenges you have is, because then what you also have is when residents are trying to find parking, they'll go all the way up and find themselves dead-ended out against the residential gates. And then try to do a three-point turn when it's already parked up. So it becomes challenging, especially when you have larger vehicles moving around. Throw a couple of Yukons in and it doesn't work real well.
You do that for parking gate, but potentially badge access, only go to a certain point.
Right, there's badge access, and
Yeah.
then we'll stripe off the closest spaces on either side to allow for turnarounds for the retail parking, is generally the strategy we employ.
Are there questions from council? I really do like the new design. I appreciate you guys putting effort into that. Thank you. All right, that moves us on to 4847 Peachtree Road. Any questions from council?
Got to figure out which one that is again.
This is a time variance for Super Jenny.
I don't have any questions. I do have to say, I really like that sign a lot. I think that it goes with the spirit of what Super Jenny is, and it's appropriate and it's artistic, so, and very creative, and I like it. I'm glad nobody's against it.
No, it does pop. I've driven by a few times, and it does. You really can see it. It looks nice. Any other comments from council or questions? All right, that brings us down to PZ 2025-1599. This is 1974 and 1980 Fifth Street. Questions from council?
That's the flight school.
Yes.
I had the opportunity to walk the site with Mr. Cussman, and so I got a pretty ground view explanation, which is always helpful for me anyway. So I don't have any questions.
Excellent. We'll move on then to PZ 2025-1602. This is 4900 Peachtree Road. And this is Discount Tires.
Discount Tires.
Actually, I do have a question for the applicant, if you if you can step up. You cited that you did not want to install that island due to safety concerns. What are those safety concerns specific?
Because we back cars in and out of the bays, and that's also where our customers exit out. That's where we do our staging to exit customers. And so it just creates an issue where you have concerns of backing into cars or other people walking in too as well.
Having a island where pedestrians could take refuge is a pretty common design factor. It's what they're installing all along Beaufort Highway right now by the DOT. Having been a customer of yours for a number of years, it's a free-for-all in the middle. Without any delineation, people just swing through and whatever. You have someone coming in and make a giant turn, go sweeping across the parking lot to get to a space. I myself have already nearly been hit a few times there because people are just driving aimlessly.
One question, are you done? I'm sorry.
Yes,
I just want to, can you get, I just want to get a map up there, or the site plan, so I can get a visual when we're having this again. That's all. I know we looked at it and everything, but it's just, I'm very visual, so I got to look at it while he's explaining it. Not rely on my memory. That was all. I didn't mean to interrupt you other than that, but I wanted to see it. So ironically, I just did get my tires aired up there 2 days ago, right before the cold hit, so because all my low pressure came on. So I got the full experience. And I also did not want to turn right to go south on Peachtree Boulevard. I wanted to go out and utilize the light between Zaxby's and you. And to Elmer's point, running that gauntlet, because there were cars everywhere. It was like all kinds of configurations. I was like, okay, I got to go behind this one, in front of this one, around this one, and whatever. Then finally I got out. So there's room for improvement. I just don't know what it, thank you. There's room for improvement. I'm not a designer. I don't know what it is, but it was especially now that the guys are coming, like I said, out of there. So it's kind of a hot mess. I don't know if this island solves the problem, but I don't know that it hurts the, I don't know either way.
You also see that area that's just outside the building. That's what we call the apron. So we also have to double stack cars there to work on cars there because the business is so busy. So now you've just decreased it down even less if you put the island there. You have basically one lane for cars to go in and out where the cars are out there on the apron. And so that's where the real concern comes in. This as you guys, if you've been there, this store is extremely busy. And just our concern is by putting the island there, it's just going to make it more congested and create more risk.
So what I just heard was it makes it harder to do our business operations for our repairs if we have that restriction there, because it's going to make it tighter. But I would say that's a you problem, not a me problem. But driving through there is a me problem when I have to drive through leaving as a customer. So I'm less interested in figuring out a way to preserve your repairs and the parking lot, essentially what you're doing, and more interested in getting the drive lanes clear and have. So I don't know. That's why I'm a little bit struggling with that. I don't know how to fix it. I don't know how you do, but it's kind of. I'm hesitant. Anyway, I don't know. I don't know that this is the answer, and I don't know that it's not. That's the problem but it was a nightmare when I went through it 2 days ago, and I didn't even know that this was on the agenda. I've been busy and hadn't had a chance to go through it, so. Okay, well.
I have to wonder if clearer striping in the parking lot and making it single direction wouldn't alleviate that.
This store is actually getting a new parking lot this upcoming year, so we could possibly propose some type of lanes on the asphalt to try to create that. We'd be willing to do whatever. This island is just, it's gonna be more congestion there, but we'd be happy to do any kind of lanes, anything that you guys would recommend. It's about safety. That's what we're trying to eliminate.
Right.
We're the end users, and so that's not really up to us to engineer. However, I think that maybe some language needs to be included that does address that when the time comes on Tuesday, because it's an odd place, odd shape, et cetera, have you always leased the parking space from Lowe's?
For the majority, this is probably the last 10 years or so, but we've increased our spaces over there.
My last two tires when I picked up my car, it was over there, and they had to run it over and bring it back, so they've been doing it a little bit.
Yeah. So to Elmer's point as well, I think that the whole pedestrian experience, especially because you have that remote parking, should be a good experience as well and not a game of dodge the car. So I would like to see your solutions.
Walkway up toward the front of the building, the showroom area. Actually, with the ADA crosswalk there, we could create a walkway for customers to identify a place for them to walk across. We could also, like I said, we could put lanes.
So that's what I think I want to see, is I want to see a comprehensive solution to not doing this. If not that, what? You know, the mayor likes to say, don't tell me what you can't do, tell me what you can do. So maybe you might need to come back, and if you can't get that ready by Tuesday, maybe we need to defer this again a month to give you time to noodle through it. But yeah, we need to know what you can do, not what you can't do.
And just to be clear, nothing's official until we vote on it. I don't want you to go running off and doing a whole bunch of work
Oh, no.
just to.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
So
Any other questions or comments from?
my thing concern is I just don't want to tell him no on Tuesday and then him go away like,
Fair.
and then go like, what do I do? It's like, we're open to
I-
suggestion. That's what I was just trying to
Yes,
convey.
I just want to make it clarify that nothing is set in stone until till we vote on it at that time. Was you trying to discount?
I'm just
it, obviously?
talking off the top of my head. None of it holds any weight.
You're all good, man. I just want to make sure, it could be confusing for the applicant at times, so I just want to make sure that we're clear. Perfect. Any other comments from council or questions? All right, thank you.
Thank you very much.
And that brings us down to Jacobs Call Center Agreement Amendment.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. This is just the annual renewal for the Jacobs Call Center contract. As you know, we've been working with Jacobs for several years now. They operate our call center. We are currently on one-year extensions of that contract, so this is just the renewal of that for a cost not to exceed $15,946.16 per month.
Any questions from council?
Slightly out of order, sorry.
It's okay. All right, that brings us down mayor and council items. I don't see anything under anybody's name, so now we're down to public comments, and I will read the rules for public comments. The mayor is the presiding officer. All remarks should be addressed to the city council as a body, not to individual members. Anyone wishing to speak shall come to the microphone, give their name and address the city clerk. Limit remarks to 3 minutes unless further time is granted by the council. Not speak a second time until everyone wishing to speak has spoken once. No one can speak more than twice. Please do not speak unless you have the microphone and been recognized. And with that, I will ask anyone in the audience if they'd like to address the council tonight. Please come up to the microphone, state your name and your address, please.
At 209 Coventry Road, Decatur, Georgia. I am trustee of 5575 through 5603 Peachtree Street. We're adjacent to the Broad Street project on, now I can't think of the side street. But we're on Peachtree diagonally across from the development. I'm not speaking in favor or against. I'm just speaking in regards to some observations that I have. And in full disclosure, I am an architect, and I'm not going to be looking at the design at all either. We're concerned a little bit about traffic, that the corner of North Peachtree and Peachtree Street, there's a stop sign there. Over the past 15 years, that sign has been run 5 or 6 times where we've had our building hit. So we're concerned about bringing additional people up through there and people hitting the building. Our second concern is the apartments that front both Peachtree Street and Ingersoll Drive. As an architect, I've noticed that if there are apartments that have ground floor entrances, that people will park in the parking places along the street rather than in the parking garage. And the portion of Chamblee that is northeast of this development is sort of short on parking places, that we are constantly having to run people out of our parking lot that are parking in the old church parking lot and at the baby store there, and it's not a pleasant experience. That we don't like to do it because we feel like, having been a member of the Chamblee community for over 60 years, that it's just not the correct way to handle business. But we're concerned about if there are some openings on those apartments. And the final one is just the fact that the building is so tall and so close to Peachtree Street that it appears to be, may become a canyon if the development were to cross in the future, a development were to cross on the old Ingersoll property and be built in the same manner up against the street, that it would be a bit on the dark side to us. But again, those are our comments about it. And we're actually looking forward to the development because that's been sort of a missing tooth in Chamblee for years. I can remember the oil company that used to sit there on the site. So thank you.
Thank you. We have a beautiful smile, by the way, with that tooth or not. Just throwing it out there. All right, anybody else like to come to the microphone and speak? All right. Do we have executive session tonight?
We do not.
And do we need a motion to adjourn? No motion. Okay. And that is the end of the session. Thank you.